Welcome to the class. These are home building kind of get an idea of what goes on in the construction process. That's why I have these classes, get somebody some insight into, if you're considering a project, just not exactly, but a lot of the key points to think about. But, I really like this slide here, and that's why I have it at the beginning of my presentations. That's kind of been my philosophy for a long time is, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, but involve me and I learn. So that's the way I look at the home building process. Just a quick story. That's how I learned the business. Is my dad just kind of threw me off the end of the pier and said, "Here's a plan. There's a lot over in Sugar Creek. Go build the house." So he certainly involved me right away. So this will give you a general idea of what goes into the roofing part of the construction process. And let's see. There we go. Okay, just a little bit about me. Blue Sky Consulting, and I've been a builder, well, all my life. My dad was a builder. I got into the business right out of school. So this is all I've ever known. And I love it. I run into something new every day. So, in fact, roofing has some new stuff too. So we'll go through that.
Yeah, I gotta ask you, Patrick. On the so you started in Sugar Creek. I grew up in a kind of a small starter home area next to Sugar Creek, but I grew up in that area. So
okay, what neighborhood was it?
It was called Barrington Place. Which was a little bit further down, but I was familiar with Sugar Creek. So
yeah, I drive by Barrington all the time, going down Derry Ashford and stuff like that. So yeah, that changed a lot. That was the beginnings back in '77. It was out there. But and feel free to ask any questions you like while we go through this, Alex. It's very informal presentation, and any question you have, just throw it out there. But the first thing is the anatomy of a roof. Some of these terms you should be familiar with as you're talking about roofs on your particular project. But first they put up the skeleton of the house, is what I call it, which is just the framing members. That's the skeleton of the house. The next step is they come in and put in this fascia board here, which actually delineates the perimeter of your roof and it gives something for the roof decking, which is the next thing they put down, kind of butt into the fascia board, which I think there may be a thing that shows it a little bit, a slide that shows it a little bit later. But right here on this edge of the decking and the fascia board is where they put a metal drip edge. And the roofer, that's the first thing the roofer puts down, as a matter of fact. So that's just a little bit about the anatomy. There isn't a lot of other complicated type of anatomy, just the skeleton, the roof decking, the fascia, all of that goes on before the roofer actually starts laying stuff down. And he goes in and puts down this underlayment. We'll talk about underlayments in future slides here. Then the shingles on top of that. And of course, vent pipe flashing. I say as a general rule, you like to keep the roof penetrations to a minimum. Keep them as low as you possibly can, because you're basically punching a hole in your roof and daring water to get in. So the fewer penetrations you have, the better. But when you do go through, you got to have those roof vents, and they've always got a jack of some kind, a flashing of some kind to put on roof penetrations. This is a situation you don't see too often anymore, where chimneys are built on houses. Most people are going to direct vent fireplaces, which really don't have a vent that goes through the roof. It can typically go out the sidewall, and it's a lot easier to vent. So that's basically the anatomy of a roof right there. Now, I will say, the strength of a roof comes from how it is braced from underneath. Right now, they're just showing the skeleton here, but if this was a true frame job, so to speak, you would see all these braces underneath these rafters that go down onto structural walls That's where all the strength of the roof comes from, not from just this skeleton thing. These collar ties are real critical. They pull, this A-frame, so to speak, together. So collar beams, when you can put them in, are great. They're great. Let's see. Do I see anything else that needs? Well, this term here, valley flashing, this is not a real easy picture to see what they're talking about there. But as we go through other slides, you'll see, when the valley, where these rafters meet in a valley, that's to channel water off of this roof. So having flashing in that valley is real important. Here's another schematic to show you the components of a roof. What's interesting in this is what you call a traditionally vented attic. This is one that's set up to have ridge vents at top and then soffit vents down at the bottom, and then the insulation on the floor of your attic. That's what this depiction is showing, but I'm more interested in how the roof is put together. Now this particular one, they call it felt underlayment. I just like the term underlayment because felt is probably not the best underlayment to put down. It used to be. That used to be all that was available, but you'll see in the coming slides that there's, number one, there's synthetic underlayment, and then there's what they call peel and stick underlayment. So we'll talk more about those as we go through. Let's see if there's any other things right here to talk about. Well, here's another roof penetration is a kitchen vent of some kind or bathroom vent. Once again, that's an area where you want to make sure it's flashed as it should be to keep water out. Now, here's a little bit about roof designs. People don't typically get too deep in the weeds on a roof design, but here are just some of the common ones you'll see. I'll tell you this one right here, the flat one. That's not a great idea in Houston with the amount of rain that comes down from the sky. But you'll see all different kinds here. This one right here, this lean-to is kind of popular with the modern designs that are coming out. The first house I ever built in 1977 had this mansard roof. So it kind of looks like a little hat on top of the house, but I just have that for folks to look at. I'm getting a call from someone. Excuse me, let me get this. She was going to be on the thing today. This Patrick? Yes. Which room I'm in? Yeah. Well, what do you mean? He's physically at the cannon? Oh, well, the class is on Zoom today. Yeah. So, yeah. Nope, we're on Zoom today. Okay. Okay, thanks. Bye. Okay, that explains why she's not here. Oh boy, I just have to chuckle at that kind of thing. Anyway, her son was at the cannon trying to get in somewhere. So anyway, onward. Okay, the types of roofs that are out there, there's all sorts of different kinds of tile roofs. This one over here to the far right is what you commonly see as asphalt or composition roofs. And this probably goes by cost increase as you move to the left here. The Spanish tile, well, not exactly, but Spanish tile is very expensive. Metal's very expensive. So these are the kind of roofs you'll see. You won't see wood shingles and shakes any longer. That when I first started building, that was the type of roofing material was used on every house I was involved with. Cedar shingles just used to be the way to go. But after a huge apartment fire in Houston back in the 80s sometime, the city of Houston outlawed wood shingles, and then the state followed after that. So you won't see cedar shingles anymore on houses. But they were the They were the rage, all the rage back in the 60s and 70s. Okay,
Hey,
underlayment.
Patrick, on those metal roofs, kind of that look that you showed, is that the standard, I guess, design where it kind of has those ridges with the
Yes, that's
okay.
pretty much, that's called a standing seam metal roof. And of course, that thing in the middle there, that's the standing seam. And that's where the pieces of metal butt up to one another. And that's how they waterproof the thing. They've got little flaps, so to speak, of metal that point straight up, and then they put that cap on top of it, and that seals it off. That's just a quick description of how those things work.
Gotcha.
Now,
and
there are different
what gauge is.
Well, that's a good question. I don't have the gauges right at the top of my mind, but I would think anytime you go look at a website relative to metal roofs, they will tell you the gauge of the metal, and but I don't know exactly. Each one of them should be very transparent about the thickness of the metal. Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay, this particular slide, this is just a sequence kind of thing I like to throw in there so you have an idea of the work that's going on a particular project when the roofing is being done. Once the underlayment is on that roof decking up there, you're free to start doing things on the inside of the house. And this is the sequence that I always recommend people work their project through, is get the underlayment, then you're basically dried in. A lot of people probably familiar with that term, dried in. If you talk to an HVAC guy and say, when will you put your equipment in? They'll say, well, when the house is dried in, when the underlayment is down. So there's lots of definitions that fly around about dried in. The one that I attach to is the one that the HVAC guy uses, because nothing can go on inside the house until that underlayment is down. That to me is dried in. Some people will get into debates about, oh, you need to have the doors and windows in, blah, blah, blah. And there is no true definition of dried in. If you look it up on the internet, there will not be a specific definition. Everybody has a different one. So I go by the HVAC guys. Anyway, that's just a quick explanation about that, but that's the sequence of work that would happen once you get that underlayment down. There's good old composition roofs. Again, that's what you commonly see all over town. Now this one, they did put some metal roofing on those curved top dormers up there, which is a pretty standard design type of thing. Here's a couple of views of different shapes of composition shingles. All of these could probably go under the category of architectural shingles. And that's typically what people will choose because they just have some profile and some meatiness to it. They have a good look up on the roofs. Just want to show you some of those. Okay, here's this all-important underlayment. And it's interesting, you know, when I was looking at this slide earlier, I said it was composition shingles they were putting on, but that really looks more like a slate type of shingle to me. But this is Grace Ice and Water Shield, which is a brand of peel and stick. And, you know, I'll hit on underlayments a number of times during this presentation. It's critically important. I recommend, and this kind of goes in with some of the building science and stuff we'll talk about later, but I recommend spending a little extra money and get a peel and stick underlayment for even, you know, no matter what roof you're doing. If you're doing a metal roof, the peel and stick is a standard. Tile, sometimes it's a standard. Composition, you have total choice. You can go synthetic or peel and stick. But what I talk about is here in this area of the country, when you have these windstorms and thunderstorms and hurricanes and things that come through, you're probably familiar with what I call the blue tarp syndrome, where you have a storm, you drive through neighborhoods and all of a sudden you're seeing blue tarps all over roofs and things like that. That's because the underlayment was ripped when the shingles were pulled off. If you use a peel and stick, you can virtually, this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but every shingle on the house could blow off and the house would still be dried in because that underlayment has stuck to the decking and it's not going anywhere. So that's my little plug for that. Also, if you're using spray foam on the underside of your roof, they highly recommend, they being the building science experts and nerds, like all of us get together and nerd out on building science all the time, but they highly recommend you use a peel and stick underlayment to keep any water from sneaking through the shingle and ending up on the roof decking. Okay, well, that's another one. Oh, and there's the sentence I was just talking about here. Building science nerds, and then in parentheses it says, like Patrick Harrington, recommend a combination of peel and stick underlayment when using spray foam insulation on roof rafters. And it's just, again, it's a level of safety, so to speak, to keep that water off of the roof decking. And you know, the roof will still work if you use a synthetic underlayment. The peel and stick just gives you that extra layer of safety. And there's underlayment again. Now this is this particular slide looks like it was probably has some age on it because they are using almost a felt paper type of underlayment, but that's what it looks like while they're putting it on. And of course, everything about the roof is on the basis of, I mean, it's technically called shingling installation, meaning you start on this first bottom row and then lay the next row on top of that and shingle it over the other end, if you get what I'm saying. So that as the water comes down, it has no way of going back up into the area and underneath the underlayment. I hope that makes sense, but you gotta, it's the shingling effect is you always want to get that in the in the installation. Now roofers just automatically do that. So, and then we got another one going where they've got all the underlayment down, which they started at the bottom and laid it all out to get to the top. Now they're doing the shingles. They start at the bottom and move all the way up to the top. And you know, these guys actually have some safety stuff on. I see a rope here. Don't quite know what good that rope's going to do if he tumbles off the roof. Maybe some soft rope he can land on, I guess. But anyway, this is how they install those roofs, and they get these different flashings in place as they go up the roof. This is looks like for a water heater over here because it's a tall one. This one over here is what they call a whirlybird to vent the roof. So that's how you'll see them doing these shingle roofs. And here's another look at being dried in. Now this was done with felt, but the principle is still the same. You know, get the decking all covered up, and I'm looking to see if I can see any tile or anything to see what this roof is going to be. It could be a tile roof. Just don't quite know at this point. These boards right here are called toe boards. Now, roofers will always tack these things up on a roof so they can walk easily on the roof. They can carry tile on the roof and move around. So you'll always see these toe boards, and the key is if there's still a toe board up there after the shingles are on, then that roofer needs to come back and remove those toe boards and take care of whatever penetrations might need to be shored up or dried in or waterproofed. Okay, after you get the thing dried in, then they start bringing the shingles and load them on the roof. That's a process. They'll take them and put them up there on the top of the roof. Another thing you'll see if you're doing stucco that has projections, kind of, you know, like little, gosh, I don't even know what you call that thing. Just a projection out the top of the roof. Okay, that has to be stuccoed. And in the sequence, the stucco comes last, whereas the roof came early, especially a composition. So the stucco guy has appropriately put a nice protection on the shingles as he does his stucco work. Now, every project's a little bit different, but when I'm working with people and I know they've got stucco on top of a composition roof, I'll be talking to them about making sure the stucco man takes care of whatever damage, in quotation marks, might have happened up on that roof. Now, another thing about roofs, once you get them on, I always recommend getting the house dried in and roofed ASAP. What that allows for is there's a lot of interior work that's going to go on inside that house for the next 2.5, maybe even 3 months, depending on how big the house is. That's a lot of good opportunity to get some nice rainstorms to fall on your roof and see how well the roof is doing. And you have to mix that in with, there will be probably some areas that aren't flashed 100%, and the water will come in those different areas, and you don't really get concerned about them. You just go, okay, I see that, that's a flashing issue. Or I see water coming in the middle of the roof. There must be some hole up there. But anyway, just to let you know, there's plenty of time to check out your roof from the time it gets the shingles on to the time you put drywall in, to make sure that everything's tight, everything's buttoned up, and you don't have access areas for water. Flashing. Always talking about flashing. This is where a roof comes up and butts into a vertical wall. And there's always got to be flashing there for that transition, so that anything that gets behind this and comes down, it hits that flashing and is shingled out on top of the shingles. Here's the second stage of flashing. It's called counter flashing, where they come in and cut, and then they put another piece of metal on top of that, which just completes the flashing process. Now, if you've got those, there's few people are using brick these days. There are a few, but it's not quite as popular as it used to be. So counter flashing is not quite as prevalent as it used to be. Okay, balconies. Love the subject. Balconies over non-living area are great. Like if you have a balcony on top of a garage, or a balcony that projects outside the perimeter of the outside wall, like this one does to some extent, but if you get back towards this door back here, it's obviously over living area. And now thankfully it's a nice covered balcony. So the amount of water that lands on this balcony is probably going to be fairly regulated. And but anyway, balconies are tricky. You really have to pay attention to the waterproofing that goes on those balconies. And the roofer does the waterproofing. So any of my clients that have balconies, I pay extra attention to what's going on with the balcony and how it's taken care of by the roofer. And once again, you'll get some work done on that balcony, and then as the construction progresses, you'll still have an opportunity to see how it performs during rainstorms. Here's just a little close-up about how it has to be waterproofed, a balcony does, no matter what size. And you have to have door pans. This is called a metal pan, but it's also called a door pan. Because let's say a door will go in this space right here, and it has to sit in a metal pan. They actually make plastic rubberized pans now. So there's a lot of different ways, but that's just the key, is to be sure those are on there. Once again, a client I'm working with, I know he's got doors upstairs going out into a balcony. Door pans are first top of my mind, and I'm constantly bringing that up to the client, make sure that gets done. There's another balcony shot. This one, the previous one was, let me show you that. This one was a metal pan for the balcony, and then the flashings going up the sides. This one is a membrane, and they call this what do they call that? A torch membrane, where they come in and lay these things down, and then they torch this seam right here, which seals it. So this is just a different way to do it. Neither one of them is better or more right than the other one. The key is to get that water to shed off of the balcony and not fall into the house. Then you can do all sorts of things. Once you get the balcony nice and waterproofed, you can lay tile all over the balcony. There's special preparation that needs to happen there. But if that's what you're wanting to do with a particular balcony, you know, we'll have discussions about it. Make sure you got all the room you need. And this looks like a pretty intricate balcony. Okay, here's valley flashing right here. Okay, it's got to cover up this gap where these two pieces of roof decking will come together. That's far from being waterproofed junction, so to speak. So they put valley flashing on top. And here you see these toe boards again that are helping this guy stay on the roof. But then they shingle over these valleys, so they're closed, what they call closed valleys. But this waterproofs that juncture right there. Then you can see over here they did close the valley. They've shingled over it, so that's all taken care of there. You can see this little piece of metal right here. That's the drip edge I was talking about. They put down almost as the very first thing before they start laying the shingles. They'll put this drip edge down, which protects that joint between the roof decking and the fascia board here. Here's another shot of it. They're the toe boards. They're working their way up top. Now in this particular one, they did not run the underlayment all the way up. They're going to run it as they go. Now there may be some reason because of the way the roof changes pitches and stuff that kept them from doing that. But this is what a roof installation will look like. Okay, now here's that flashing situation I was telling you, where a sloped roof comes up and hits a vertical wall. There will always be flashing there. Flashing no matter what the cladding is. 9 times out of 10, you'll see siding up here. And still there's a flashing piece down here. Now, this particular one, of course, had brick. And so they not only have the flashing here, but they had to come back and counter flash it, as you saw on that other previous slide. They do have to come in here and cut a channel and then put that counter flashing on top of it and down to close the gap, so to speak. Okay, there's a finished product. Nice architectural shingle there. And let's see, I don't see much to talk about there. There's a thing I don't recommend very, very highly are power vents. You know, you're supposed to be saving electricity, not using it to vent your attic. So that's a little bit of a oxymoron there. But plus they've got a lot of other vents there, which, you know, venting's a whole different subject. That's a building science subject, but just want to point it out.
Hey, Patrick, on the venting, I mean, is there, because to me it seems like, you know, the more stuff you have on the roof, it just kind of creates more maybe leak paths or something like that. But is there a way to design a roof where you don't have a lot of the venting on a roof and you could have it elsewhere?
Well, you know, there's a vented attic and there's a non-vented attic. And non-vented is typically relating to when you spray foam, you're sealing the entire attic and you don't vent it at all. But if you're going with the traditional insulation route, with the insulation that lays on the floor of your attic, there's a couple of different ways you can look at the venting. Now, if you read into the building science, venting an attic is all about convection. It's about bringing in air from underneath in the soffit, coming up into the roof and venting out the top through the ridge vents. So that's the convection loop that you want to keep for passively venting your attic. So there's all sorts of there's different lines of thought that the ridge vents are the way to go. Just have a top vent and let that convection go the way it's supposed to go. And there's even a line of thinking that if you put vents farther down here, you're kind of messing up with that convection loop. You're kind of pulling air off to the side to come out a different vent instead of going out to the top. And that kind of defeats the whole purpose of the convection loop. You follow what I'm saying there?
I do.
Yeah. So there's different ways, and each house is different. That's why you got to look at them and see what you can do. I'm a big proponent of spray foam. I don't think you can get a better insulated, more energy efficient house with other means, not without going to great lengths to make it energy efficient. So that's a whole different conversation. That's the insulation class that I'll have sometime down the road. But to answer your question, sure, you can completely eliminate vents on the roof when you do a spray foam attic.
Okay.
And that's the ultimate. A spray foam attic is amazing. If you've ever been able to get into one on a hot summer day, you don't even know it's a hot summer day outside when you're standing in the attic. Pretty amazing.
Is the spray foam on the underside of the roof, or is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the other underside, it's in between the rafters. Yeah. So it goes right up against the bottom of the roof decking. So there's a lot of little nuances to it. Goes under the bottom of the roof decking, and again, that's why a peel and stick on top of the roof decking is highly recommended, because then it keeps that roof decking dry, absolutely dry. So there's just a couple of different things to look at there. But yeah, spray foam. Yeah, I would encourage you to pull up stuff on YouTube about spray foam and just get yourself familiar with it. It's pretty amazing stuff. Okay, I just like to show this. This was my neighbor's next door that I kept trying to. She was off across the ocean working for an oil company. I kept telling her, hey, squirrels are doing that. Squirrels will eat these darn roof vents. So it's something to always watch out for. Now, there's lots of squirrels in my neighborhood. You may be out somewhere where there aren't any squirrels, so you're okay. But that's something to look out for right there. Those darn things like to eat that stuff. Okay, here's a metal roof. Very different look. That's the standing seam metal roof you were asking about, Alex. These standing seams right here are all junctures for the different panels. This roof panel is probably 2 or 3 gaps wide, but this is how it's all put together. And then one of these standing seams would be a waterproofing type to connect the panels. And there we got peel and stick underlayment again. I just like to show it.
Yeah, on that roll, I guess how much square footage or whatever comes on a roll? Or maybe that's too specific. I guess kind of my thing, are these things expensive where it's like if you were designing a roof and you're like, man, I don't want to get another roll of these things out here. Let's keep it under a certain, like under just one roll delivery or.
Well, usually a roof, I mean, it's all over the map because it depends on the size of the house. But, the underlayment, well, let me say this. The roofers that I like to use are what they call turnkey roofers. So they come in and they give you a price based on labor and material. So they're supplying the underlayment, they're supplying the shingles, they're supplying the nails, they're supplying the drip edge, everything. So I rarely see it broken out. The time I do see it broken out is if I ask the estimator when we do a material takeoff to give me a takeoff on the roof supplies. And then he'll, what I'm used to saying is maybe 10, 15 rolls of underlayment.
Okay.
And then the question becomes, are you using a synthetic underlayment, which would be at, let's say, $10 a roll, or a peel and stick, which might be $15 a roll. And then you look and see if that added expense, it's certainly going to give you a benefit on protecting your roof. Is that added expense something you want to dive into, or do you want to take that money and spend it somewhere else? You know, if you're controlling the project, you're in control of where that money goes. So, but together we'll look at a breakdown and see what that extra is going to be. And you just tell the roofer when you're gathering bids, when we're gathering bids, is bid this thing with a peel and stick and bid it with a synthetic underlayment. So you can see the difference between the two. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right, these are guys putting the finishing touches on the top of the roof. Not necessarily I think there are some ridge vents they can put on these metal roofs, but that's if it's a vented roof, and it doesn't have to be. All right, here's another use of metal roofs, is just a nice accent roof on the front porches. They'll do a combination of composition and metal, and that's a real nice feature, way to put a little jazz to the elevation. Now we're into tile roofs. You know, tile roofs were extremely popular for a long time with this Mediterranean look, but there's a lot of little intricacies to tile roofs. Number one, they're very heavy, so the house has to be engineered to accept a tile roof, meaning the design engineer that does the foundation and the frame structure has to take into account that you're going to have a metal roof. So that's a decision that needs to be made early on, so the engineer can have it worked into his calculations and what he does, which is typically the rafters. He'll increase the size of the rafters. So instead of 2x6 rafters, you have 2x8 rafters. And depending on the tile and the slope of the roof, you notice this roof has got a lower slope than what you might typically see. And tile roofs are that way. They have a low slope, so you can get a good eyeball on the tile, but that also puts the weight of the roof coming straight down, which pushes against these outside walls. I'm getting into engineering here, so I'll pull myself out of that realm, just to say that engineers do need to take some consideration for a tile roof. So if that's what you're thinking of doing, you know, let them know that up front. Here we go, laying down more underlayment. Again, this looks like a synthetic type of underlayment. Rhino Roof is a brand. And this is just to show that there are a number of them that you can get on this roof decking. All right, here's the preparation for a tile roof. They'll come in and they'll dry it in, and then they put these 1x2 nailers, so to speak, and then they put these tall pieces of ridge board, let's say. Let me see, let me get back to this one right here. Yeah, that ridge board, stand-up ridge board was right here, and it's put in that way so that when they put this cap on top, it sticks up quite a bit and adds a real nice looking, you know, visual feature to the tile roof. So this is what it looks like before they start putting the tile on it. And it's another closer look. Again, here's that drip edge again, metal drip edge. And then these little pieces right here, you actually hook the tiles onto these and connect them to these pieces. It's another close shot of valley flashing, of course, but on a metal roof. Yeah, it looks a lot different, but eventually it'll all get covered up and you won't see any of it. And here they are putting the tiles down. You see they kind of connect them to these 1x2 pieces here. And again, the shingle effect. They'll start at the bottom and lap these over on top of each other. So when the water comes moving down, you know, it's water falling down the whole roof. There's a lot going on this thing here. They're doing the tile, just moving up the roof with the tile, and taking care that they're really nice and snug around these different roof jacks. It's rare that I actually see roof jacks be put in incorrectly and leak. But again, once you get the tiles on the roof at this early stage, you've got time to watch any storm that might come through and see how your roof is holding up. And this is just a little bit of a tile roof, just showing it how it goes up against other materials. And you can guess that this piece of the roof that ties in and kind of butts into the vertical part of another wall, flashing, quite a bit of flashing along here. Just a nice picture, typical Mediterranean job. And here's a combination tile and metal roof. So you can do virtually any kind of combination of tile that you can think of. Now we got the solar panel roofs. Now I know this was a big thing a few years ago. I actually had a client put down a deposit for these Tesla solar panels, solar tile roofs. I don't think it took off. I really haven't heard much about it. They were throwing out numbers about, hey, it's only going to cost this per square. And once they finally got everything in place, it's like, well, it's this, to the 7th degree cost. The cost was quite a bit higher than they were throwing out at first. So nothing really took off too much. So, they are out there. I think they're being refined more and more. The technology is not cost efficient yet. Despite what you hear out there, you can, get solar panels and solar shingles like this, but they're very costly right now. So we all hope that they come up with some technology that works at a nice cost. Now here's one. This is a whole solar panel type roof that's installed like a clay tile roof. You see these all these nailers that they're hooking on. This one, I would be afraid to even guess how much this thing cost, because this is the solar panels and collectors in everything. Now they do have to have it raised so they can run the different wires underneath it. If this is solar gathering on each one of these shingles, you've got to be able to get the juice from the shingle down the wire and into the battery that's probably in the garage of the house down there somewhere. So the technology is all there, but it's still very costly. I think we might. Yep, that's the end of the roofing presentation. And if you want to sit down and talk to me about a project, feel free to call me, reach out to me, text me, any way you'd like to. I'll be having more workshops coming up. I'm putting together one on energy and building science, and I keep running into so much new material that it keeps growing and getting bigger. But I'm working on that, and I think that'll be the next one that I have. So I'd just like to, at this point, open it up to any questions. Alex, Keenan, any questions from anybody?
No questions.
Okay, good.
I got just a couple of them. So, and I know it doesn't really fall maybe into roofing, but just something I was thinking, I don't know what the right term is, but let's say the overhang of the roof. Is there, like, sometimes I'll see houses, I guess I don't like the look of gutters, but I know it has a purpose, and it's to get the water away from the foundation. But is there, can you do an overhang, or do you recommend an overhang so you don't have to worry about gutters?
Well, overhangs do a couple of things. Number one, they do shed water farther outside the actual, outside wall of the house. But they can also provide shading. Usually when you see a house with really deep overhangs, they're doing more for shading sun out of windows than they are for water control. There are different ways you can put a house with an overhang, forget the gutters, and put kind of a rock. How do I say this? Like a rock bed 2 to 3 feet outside of the perimeter of the house and let the
Okay.
water shed into that rock structure, so to speak.
Okay.
That's another way to control water around the house. I mean, the whole key is to get the water away from the house once it starts cascading off the roof or whatever. Typically, people use gutters for that, but you don't have to. You can let the water just shed right off the end of the overhang and fall into a rock type of gravel space so that it's disseminated and channeled away from the house from there. So that's a long answer to your short question. There are ways to avoid gutters.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's exactly what. And I'd heard something about the rock around the foundation, as well. So okay. No, I appreciate that. That's all I got.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here. You got some concentrated, almost one-on-one interaction, and we will be having future classes. And we're looking at, whether to do them Zoom or to do them in person. And still playing around with that. Probably the next one will be in person. Can't guarantee it because I've got to get the space. But so thanks for being here. And if you got any questions at all, reach out to me and let's talk about it. Okay. Thanks for being
everyone.
here. All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye.